I'm almost ready to shoot this news time, Ron. Give me 1 second. I got a really funny prank I want to do. Hey, AT&T, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Was that Ron? It's not their slogan. And whose is it? Verizon's? Then give me AT&T's slogan and I'll just make sure I'll say them. Okay, hold on. Your world close at hand fits you best? More bars and more places? Rethink possible? More for your thing that's our thing? Who says any of this stuff? It's gross. Ron, this is bad. This is bad content and I can't believe you gave it to me. All right, my eyes have been darting from every wall to every other wall because I forgot where I looked earlier in this cold open. But it doesn't matter. I hate you, Ron. I hate you. Hey, TNT. Can you hear me now? Okay, bye.
It's news time. Delivering to you the news you didn't know about, the news you didn't care about, and the news you didn't know you cared about. With host, Chad White. Now, here's that host, Chad White.
Welcome back to News Time. I'm your host, Chad White, and this is the AT&T news that you didn't know about. Ding dong, AT&T's dead. Well, at least their reign in Hollywood is. And by reign, I mean the butchering of Warner Bros. Properties. Maybe I should start over. No, I'm pretty good. I wanted to take this time, now that Warner Media has officially merged with Discovery, to sit down and look at the timeline of AT&T's slow drip through Hollywood. Now, there's been some good things and some not so good things, so we're going to go over basically everything right now. So here we go. Timeline of AT&T dipping into Hollywood. AT&T in 2016 was in talks of acquiring Time Warner. 2 years later, in 2018, the deal would close after extensions and non-government intervention. In 2017, Time Warner shareholders essentially approved. In 2018, again, the antitrust trials proved fruitless, though appeals would not end until early the next year in 2019. Same time in 2018, Time Warner evolved into Warner Media. And then, of course, in 2019, HBO Max was revealed as a way to compete with the likes of Netflix and as well as the other streaming services that we would know today. And J.J. Abrams was given $500 million in a deal to show AT&T that it was, AT&T was like, hey, we're serious about TV and movies and stuff, and we're going to give one of the best producers in Hollywood all this money in order to make whatever it is he's going to make. In 2020, they were essentially silent until Q2, the second quarter, when Jason Kilar jumped on board from Hulu, I believe, and HBO Max was said to be coming no matter what. Now, if you remember, in 2020, a global pandemic started, and HBO Max was already ramping up for release. In the fall of 2019, they were talking about it and what's going to be on there and how it's going to be great, and nobody was sure if HBO Go and HBO Now were going to still be around, but oh boy. And then HBO Max launched with a bunch of bugs. It was a buggy start, as well as probably one of the biggest things to hurt it: no Roku support. Now, you'll hear about Roku not having certain apps and services when they launch, because Roku's the biggest, besides Apple TV, the biggest and Android TV, I guess, the biggest platform in order for people to watch their stuff. And they have a lot of cheap devices. They've been around the longest. So when something wants to launch on Roku, they got to show them the buckaroos. That's why there's always been issues with Peacock or YouTube TV or even YouTube itself. Actually, I think Peacock launched on Roku. Doesn't matter. But there's always been some type of, well, not always, more recently been some type of issues with that stuff. Then 2020, layoffs hit Warner and HBO due to what they say costs, as well as the pandemic. Now, there were going to be 1,000 jobs cut across both of those. I don't know if it was unlike Disney and Fox, where I think close to 9,000 jobs were cut, but time will still tell because people were still reeling from that acquisition, and we're going to talk about what's coming up next. Same year, 2020, Wonder Woman 1984 becomes the first major movie to hit theaters and streaming during the pandemic. Now, if you recall, in 2020, no movies essentially came out in theaters, and we were unsure, as well as theater owners, that. Okay. Start over from Wonder Woman 1984 because Americana started playing. Okay. That same year, 2020, Wonder Woman 1984 becomes the first major movie to hit theaters and streaming during the pandemic. Now, if you recall, 2020, everybody was unsure about movies and going back to theaters in the future when the pandemic would slow or be over. Theater owners were losing money left and right. Theaters shut down. People were getting used to watching movies at home. You can see Trolls World Tour on Peacock. If you paid the money to see, if you subscribe to Peacock, movies were being sold. Paramount sold off a bunch of movies, including Lovebirds, like starring Kumail Nanjiani and Issa Rae, to Netflix, and we essentially lost the middle ground for comedies. Essentially, they're basically dying in theaters. Anyway, so Wonder Woman took the plunge. Warner dropped Wonder Woman onto HBO Max and in theaters because theaters were opening in the winter of 2020 so that it could have kind of a double box office. Then they essentially said, hey, every movie in 2021 is going to come to HBO Max and theaters. For some movies, that paid off. For others, it did not. 2021, AT&T and Discovery agreed to the merger, which would then turn into a spinoff a year later. Warner Media would end up selling, so far, we'll see what happens, but they end up selling Playdemic mobile division to EA for $1.4 billion. Now, keep in mind, this is still when it's under AT&T. AT&T is trying to recoup some of the losses that they had with Warner Media, and it was a lot of losses. They also sold TMZ to Fox Corp. TMZ already aired on Fox Corp, as well as TMZ Sports, which airs on FS1, I believe, and Fox Sports. So it makes sense that Fox, corporation would want to own whatever they're airing on Fox Broadcasting, as well as the advertising platform Xandr to Microsoft. Don't know about that one, didn't know it even happened. 2022, Warner Media and Viacom CBS want to unload the CW. There were rumors in January that the CW was basically going to be sold off, and that it makes sense. Two different parent companies that are both merged companies not wanting to go one-to-one with the shows that they had, and that's why shows like Supergirl were able to go from CBS over to the CW. And that's why we had a lot of DC shows that were for teens essentially over on the CW as well. So CW got that comeuppance because Warner Media and the CW canceled Legends of Tomorrow and Batwoman, and the verdict's still out on Stargirl, which was moved from HBO Max. I think DC Universe at HBO Max over to the CW, and The Flash, which I can only assume next year will be its last season, as well as Superman and Lois, which I think does really well on HBO Max. Okay, John Stakey, the AT&T CEO now, he was the new CEO when AT&T took over Warner Media. He is now telling everybody that the cellular company is looking to be a better cellular company, and they're going to only deal in things related to the cellular company. They want to make AT&T better, essentially, and who knows if that's going to be true, because they were splitting their focus between cell phones and entertainment. Stanky also received a pay raise last year during a time when a lot of people's jobs were lost, and eventually 2022 Warner Media Discovery became official. Now it's officially a company, and we're seeing already the machinations of that. There's CNN Plus, which was supposed to launch and be great, did not launch very well and was not great, and was canned after almost 2 to 3 weeks, which makes sense. And with AT&T's step into Hollywood, like I said, there were some good things. They did rename Time Warner and all that stuff to Warner Media. And, quite frankly, I think it's because we've been saying Warner Media for the past 5 years, 6 or 7 years, whatever, is that Warner Media is a decent name, and now Warner Media Discovery is the most convoluted name I've heard since Viacom CBS, which I think is now just Paramount. Let's see what else. They launched HBO Max, which was really good, even though it was ill-fated. And that version of HBO Max was ill-fated because it would take until March or February of this year, of 2022, for them to relaunch HBO Max. Not because the original version of HBO Max, let's say V1, was launched under the HBO Now app. So it was basically just the skeletons of that app and then HBO Max. So now we have a new version of HBO Max that is built from the ground up and a little bit better. There's still some bugs there, but that's what happens with all these apps, at least on Chromecast or Google TV. Anyway, get Apple, kids. And then, what are the good things that pop at the top of the head? They did, what, quite frankly, I think Wonder Woman 1984, I want Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot to get paid and everybody else to get paid for the hard work they did. It sucks that they had to be the test case for movies hitting streaming and theaters at the same time, but it had to be done because otherwise the idea was be like Paramount and hold Top Gun Maverick until May 2022. So you can't do that with every movie. You have to end up putting these movies onto streaming and really play ball because that is the new form of viewing things. And unfortunately, it I think adversely affected a majority of their movies. Now, if you were a person like me and you enjoy going to theaters, even if you hate seeing people and being around people, it was nice to see. I think I saw all the movies that came out. No, the movies that came out on HBO Max day and date with theaters. I think I either saw them in theaters first or ended up seeing them in theaters, like Godzilla versus Kong, In the Heights. Did not see Wonder Woman 1984 in theaters because I was too afraid then. I saw those movies in theaters, and if I liked them, I watched them again, and if I liked them enough, I bought them, like Godzilla, like In the Heights, and eventually The Batman and West Side Story. So even though West Side Story came out this year, or not this year, was it this year? I guess, I don't know, who cares? I did end up buying it though, so I saw it in theaters and I ended up buying it. So there you go, even though I've seen the original several times and listened to the soundtrack 1,000 times. So there were some good, some bad, but a lot of bad coming out of AT&T coming into Hollywood. And it just goes to show that, tech companies and I'm not saying stay in your lane. Anna Wintour can be a fashion mogul, but also, run magazine labels even though that turned out to be pretty bad. There's a lot of racial insensitivity stuff, but you're able to be. I think as long as you're adjacent to that world, as long as you're adjacent to the world of entertainment, then you can enter it and be okay. You can be okay because Verizon had Verizon Go, and it just did not pan out. And AT&T is doing this. It tried to do Warner Media, and it just did not work. T-Mobile tried to do live TV, even it tried to be a service of live TV, and that didn't work. So we've got all of these tech companies trying to jump in and say, hey, we can do this. We can do the Hollywood thing too, but it just doesn't work like that. It's not like a comedian who's also a musician, or it's not like an actor who is also a model. I don't know. I couldn't think of something. You have to be able to be adjacent to that in order to at least do decently. So that's what AT&T did not do. Listen, you know what you could do is subscribe and check out one of our other videos. Of course, you can head to the website, cpluscomedy.com, where I never mess up this outro ever. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at C Plus Comedy. Follow me on both of those at Chad Black White. Like us on Facebook. Listen to the Constitutionals podcast wherever you get your podcast. And guys, you know what? I'm starting to think AT&T sold me a bum lemon phone.